Hi, welcome to Crosspoint Community Church. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Nathaniel, and this is what you need to know this week.
If you're a first-time guest and you're wondering what we're all about, our mission here at Crosspoint is to lead people to be passionate followers of Christ.
If you were wondering what those boxes were when you walked in, over there, that's TOM. Stands for Tithes, Offerings, and Missions. This is how we take offering here at Crosspoint.
Today we are continuing our Guardians election. Basically, that means we're voting for a church board. But in order to vote, you need to be a partner here at Crosspoint Community Church. That means you have to go through the partnership class. And you also have to be at least 15 years old. The election or the polling tables will be out in the back hallway. You just go down the hallway and there's going to be like a little side hallway to the right, and it's going to be right in there. But we are doing this to officially organize as a church and hope that you all vote. Okay, so we got a lot going on over the next week, but let's start with what's going on actually next week.
Okay, everyone, we got something serious to talk about. Next week, it's the last kid stuff of the season. So come on out at 5:45 for pre-party. It'll start at 6 o'clock. I better see you all there.
Also next week we will be having a standalone message titled, Why Faith? This would be a great time for you to invite a friend.
Now that we've taken a little look at what's happening next week, let's focus on what's going to be happening this week.
Students, tonight we got student takeover starting at 6 o'clock. You can come out at 5:15 for some pizza and hangout time. Be a lot of fun, but hope to see you all there.
Well, today we continue on with our series, This Is How We Change the World, with Part 4, Character. If you missed any of the other series, you can go on our YouTube page. And you can get that by going to our website, crosspointonline.net. Check it out.
Well, that's all we got to need to know this week. If you have any questions, please stop by the welcome table on your way out, or you can visit our website, like Nathaniel said, crosspointonline.net, or you can check out our app. Please don't forget to drop your offering into TOM on your way out. And that's all we got for you this week. Here's a brief recap.
Today we are wrapping up our series, and I want to play a game to get us started. Can we play a game? Maybe I don't want to play a game with you if you're going to be like that. Okay, this is what I want you to do. I want you to imagine you have just graduated from high school, okay? So some of you, that'll be flash forward, some of you flash back, some of you way flash back, so you can just figure out which group you're in. I want you to imagine you have just graduated from high school, and you are taking a job at McDonald's over the summer, okay? So some of you are 17, 18, 19, others 22, 23, depending on how your high school career went. Okay, so y'all there, you're working at McDonald's, and this is the game, okay? So get your arms ready. Can we just do this one so I know that you all can do it? There we go. Fantastic. No gang symbols, please. just straight five-finger hand raise up. The game is we're going to figure out what would make you quit your job. Okay, so you can answer more than once. I will have several different options. So who of you would say, yes, I'm working at McDonald's, I've already quit my job? There we go, a few of you. You can go, just no chance whatsoever. Okay, well, stay with us for the other rounds. And imagine that you do want to work at McDonald's, because otherwise you'll just raise your hand for everything. Okay, would it make you quit your job if they, let's see here, if they took away your employee discount? How many of you would say, if I liked my job at McDonald's, I would quit my job if they took away my employee discount? We're just huge fans of McDonald's food. Wow, thank you. There we go. I would. Okay, how many of you would say I would quit my job if they switched our uniforms to more like a certain chain of restaurants that involves an owl? Are you with me? Who would say, yes, I would quit my job if that was the case? Gentlemen, please, raise your hands. Gentlemen, please, I beg of you, raise your hands. Okay, how many of you would say you would quit your job if they didn't give you, like if they didn't take into account your vacation time whatsoever? They said, this is your schedule, you have to work here no matter what. How many of you say I would quit my job then? I would say, yeah, there we go. Okay, good. Some of you aren't participating very much. That's okay. It's not okay, but whatever. Okay, how many of you would say I would quit my job if I felt like my boss, if he just wasn't like a good boss, like he didn't communicate well, I never felt like he heard me? How many of you say I would quit my job if I didn't like my boss? Okay, so some of you. How many of you would quit your job if you continually, let's say twice a week, Bob, put your hand down, if twice a week you guys just had terrible hour-long meetings that were just a drain on you? How many say I would quit my job if twice a week we had terrible meetings? Okay, some more. All right, now here's one more. Okay, how many of you would say I would quit my job if I found out that my boss kept lying to me throughout the summer? How many of you would quit your job? Okay, so most of us. And here's what I want to draw out of this, and this is what interests me, is that in this series, we've been talking about leadership. When we say this is how we change the world, we say that the way that we change the world, make an impact, is through leadership. And I think we get this idea from time to time that leadership is about talent or leadership is about skills. And yet when we got on the meeting question, which is a skill, running a meeting, there were a few of us. When we got on the boss, doesn't really connect, doesn't communicate well, there were still a few of us, which both of those are skills. And then when we got to the my boss lies to me, I would say the vast majority of us raised our hand that we said that if our boss was lying to us, we would want to quit them, which is a character issue. And so the person who's in charge of you, the person who's leading you, we often see leadership as this is a skill, this is a talent thing. But then when we put ourselves in the other shoes, we see that leadership really comes down to a character thing, to an integrity thing. And so I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe that leadership at the core is about having character. Leadership, if you could boil it down to just kind of the irreducible minimum, leadership is about character and it's about integrity. And I think you know this. If you just kind of look back through your life at significant different times, you would go, okay, you know what, that's true for me. Maybe I liked being under or working for people who were really skilled and really talented and really knew what they were doing. But at the end of the day, it really came down to whether or not I could trust them, whether or not they were a person who I liked following, whether or not they were a person who was moral. And so this is very important for us. And this is kind of a side to the message, but this is what I've believed for a long time. I believe that good leadership is about having good character. And I believe that having good character is about being like Christ. And I think we could agree with that. Nod your head. Yes? Yes. Okay, good. So good character is about Christ-likeness. And so if you take the one in the middle out, then good leadership is about being like Christ. And so I believe wholeheartedly the best leaders in the world should come out of the church and should be Christians. As we've looked through different things, we've seen, hey, you know what? When kind of the experts are saying this, the Bible said it thousands of years ago. And so I just want you to know, as you grow and as you develop, you should be making more and more of an impact. Now, I don't want you to feel guilty if you're not well, I haven't done much recently. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that as you become more and more like Christ, you will make more and more of an impact in the world. We see that throughout the Bible. We see that through the disciples and the people who they bring along with them, that as they become more like Christ, they become better leaders and they make a greater and greater impact in the world. Now, here's the problem with that, though, is that this is usually how we view character. We usually view character as an all or none thing. Either you have character or you don't. And I can remember growing up many different times, people would tell me different things like that. I can remember an object lesson when I was like in 4th and 5th grade when we were at a camp, and it was just a bunch of boys in the room, and the guy came up, and he had a white shirt on, just a plain white shirt, and he said, this shirt is like your character. This shirt is like your integrity. And you go, see, it's spotless. I wish I had a white shirt on. I probably should have thought that through because I keep looking down. He goes, it's spotless. It's exactly as it should be. And then he goes, and he had a big hot dog. And like we're 4th grade, we're like, oh, it's a hot dog. Oh my goodness, he's got a hot dog. 'Cause I should have a hot dog, too. I should have thought this through. And so he pulls up a big hot dog, and he goes and he just took a huge bite. And when he did, he just kind of slobbered a bunch of ketchup down his face and onto his shirt. And so we're there. And it's like 4th grade boys is one of the, if you get a hot dog and ketchup, they're the easiest audience in the world to captivate. Because we're all sitting there and we're like, oh my goodness, he's got ketchup on his shirt. And so he's like, oh no. And so he goes and he like wipes it off and goes, well, is the stain still there? Like, yeah, it's still there. And you go, well, what happens if I run it through the washer? Well, it'll probably still be there. Well, what happens if I keep running it through the washer over and over again? He goes, well, what will happen is it'll be a little bit less, but it'll still be there. And he said, your character is the exact same way. Your character is full. Your character is intact. And as soon as you get a little stain on it, it may go away, but it's damaged. You've kind of got a chink in your integrity, and that stain can never completely be removed. And so he kind of sent us out with, like, so never lie again. Now, there's a couple problems with that. Is because we were like 10. Our character wasn't completely intact. I mean, that just isn't the case. And so what I realized is that character is not so much like that. Character is more like this. Character comes in shades. In terms of there's degrees. It's not an all or none thing. It comes in degrees. And the ways that we get this wrong is so huge. Sometimes people will think, and if I could, I just want to dispel some myths on this really quickly. Sometimes people will think that because they don't lie, that means they have perfect character or perfect integrity. Like, here's the deal. If you don't lie, but you're incredibly prideful, you have a character problem. And one of the other definitions that I heard growing up, I thought this was very helpful, but they said character is doing what's right when no one is looking. Has anyone heard that before? Doing what's right when no one is looking. Which is great. We go, oh yeah, doing what's right. It's about watching your quiet time, making sure you're doing what you're supposed to when no one else is around, not cutting corners, not cheating, not doing all those other things. But the other problem with that is that character is also doing what's right when everyone is looking. I'm going to share a story that doesn't make me look good. When I was in 5th grade, we started a club in my class. We were the Cool Bee Club, KOOL-B. I don't know how we came up with a name, but we were the Cool Bee Club. At one point in time, there were 10 of us in this club. I was vice president. Yeah. Thank you. Jeez, I worked really hard. I was vice president of this club, and then I got kicked out of the club, even though I was the co-founder, vice president. I got kicked out because I sat at the girls' lunch table. And the crowd said, ooh, thank you. I sat at the girls' lunch table, and so I got kicked out of the club that I co-founded. Now, my former club members gave me a way back in. They said, hey, you can be back in the club. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. I'll do anything. Just tell me. There was a girl in class who liked me. Her name was Laura Belden. This was a pattern that continued for most of my school career. There's a girl. They're like, yeah, you believe that, don't you? Her name was Laura Belden. She liked me. She had red hair. I did not like her. I thought 2 redheads would just be a bit much in a couple. That was just that was too much there. But she was very open that she liked me, and my club members told me that this was my way back into the club. I had to go to Laura at recess and ask her out. Now, just to be clear, parents, if there was any confusion, this was not a date. We were then going out. We didn't go out and do anything, but we were going out, just to be clear on that. We would never see each other outside of school class, but we were going out. And so they wanted me to ask her out, and I thought, I don't really like Laura, and that seems like a strange punishment since I sat at the girls' lunch table and that's how I got kicked out. Now you want me to have a girlfriend. But I thought, yeah, I want to be in the club. I can do that. But they weren't done. I had to go to her at recess, ask her out in front of her friends, and then tell her, good, you're dumped. And the crowd said, oh, yeah. And I did it. I know. I'm such a jerk. She cried. And I felt so bad. And I felt so bad, I went home that day and I told my mom what I had done. And I was expecting, like I was broken. I was so sad because I thought she'd take it a little better. And I went up to her and she was on the swings. And I was like, Laura, will you go out with me? And all my friends were behind me and all her friends were behind her. And she went, yes. And I went, good, you're dumped. And then we ran away laughing, and I looked back, and she was already crying. And so I went home that day, and I told my mom, and I was, like, broken. Like, I was so sad. I couldn't believe I had done this. And my mom beat me. Like, I mean, yeah, so she gets applause. Yeah. I deserve that. I deserve that. Like I thought there was going to be, like she saw that I was, like, sad, I was upset, I was remorseful. No, that was not okay. She made me write her a letter of apology, give it to her, and also apologize to her in person. So that was fun. But here's my point on this: is that when we talk about character integrity, now that you think I have no character integrity whatsoever to talk to you about, is that I did what was right in private, but in public, I had no character. And I think we get this disconnect that we talk about this idea of character integrity as they have it or they don't. And we usually view people this way. Like if you feel like someone deceives you, you will often say things like, well, they have no character. They just have no integrity. I can't trust them because there's no character to them because this one thing happened. But the issue is that it comes more in shades. And it's very important that we understand this, because if you view character as an all or none, what's going to happen is you will never, ever work on developing your character. Because you can't. Because it means you have none. And I'm going to say that again because I want to make sure that sinks in. If you view character integrity as an all or none, it's black or white, they have it or they don't, you will never, ever do the work of developing your character, because in doing so, you're admitting that you have no character, that you have no integrity whatsoever. And so this is what I want to do this morning. I want to go through what does it look like to have character and integrity. Just real quickly, I want to give you the definition of character. The definition of character is moral quality, which I think that helps us in that idea of it comes in shades, and it's not a black or white, because some of us, our moral quality is higher than others, but it means it's not a 100% or 0% thing, that it comes in shades along the way. And so this is what I want to go through this morning. I want to go through how does character develop? Because I think this is really important. And especially I see it now as a parent, because as a parent, your number one job is character development of your kids. I mean that's it. If it is Christ-likeness, it's character development of your children. That's your number one job. But if you came back and went, well, how does that happen? Well, we do this and we do this, and we tuck them in at night, and we make sure they get lots of hugs and vegetables. And yeah, hugs and vegetables is how we develop character. I think that's it. And that's obviously not the case. And so I'm not going to give you step-by-step everything along the way, but I want to show you 3 specific things that must happen in your life for your character to be developed. And I think this will be kind of fun because you'll be able to track with this on some moments in your life. So I'll give them to you right up front. Character is about being marked, marred, and remade. Character is about being marked, marred, and remade. And this music stand just slides down the entire time. So I'm going to leave that aside for now. All right, so let's start out. First off, character is about being marked. Character is about being marked. I want to track through today David who killed Goliath, David who was king, David's character development throughout his life. And I want to tell you, we're going to look at David again in like 2 weeks. Pastors love talking about David because of a couple different reasons. The first reason is he screws up a ton, and so there's just so much sermon material because he messes up so many times. It's awesome. And so that's one reason. The second reason why we like looking at David is because we have his diary. In the book of Psalms, most of it was written by David. And so it's very, very interesting to be able to go, okay, this happened here in his life, and this is what he was thinking about it. Or this happened here, and then this is internally how he responded to that. So we'll pull some of that out as we go. So the story of David, how it starts in the Bible is it goes like this. Saul is the king of Israel, and because of some different things, disobedience, God rejects Saul. So God tells Samuel, who is the prophet, I want you to go anoint the next king of Israel. And so he goes, I'll tell you where to go. And so he leads Samuel along the way, and he eventually leads him to a guy by the name of Jesse to his house. And Samuel goes, Jesse has all these different sons, and Samuel kind of goes, okay, so one of these is going to be the next king. And so Samuel brings out his first son. His son is strong, and he's tall, and Samuel's kind of thinking, well, surely this is the guy. And then he hears God telling him, God tells him, no, I have rejected him. This is not the one. And he brings out son after son after son, and each time Samuel thinks, okay, this is the guy. And he hears, no, not this one. And it finally gets done, and Samuel goes, well, no, none of these guys are the guy. Jesse, do you have any other sons? And Jesse goes, well, there's the youngest, but he's with sheep. And so he sends for him. And then this is what happens. This is 1 Samuel. Just so you know, if you have your Bible this morning, don't even try to follow along, because I'm going to be all over the place. And I apologize for telling you not to use your Bibles in church, but it'll just give you a headache, and I'll have to keep pausing. So this is what happens. This is 1 Samuel 16, 12 through 13. It says, so he sent and had him brought in. He was ruddy, with a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, rise and anoint him. He is the one. So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came upon David in power. This was David's marking. This is the moment that he was marked. This happened to anybody? No, not so much. Well, just in case, I brought anointing oil if we want to form a line and we could just go through that. No. My guess is that your marking did not happen this way, but make no mistake of it, you have been marked. In Ephesians 1:11 it says this. It says, in him we were also chosen, having been predestined according to the plan of him who works out everything in conformity with the purpose of his will. I want to focus on that first part. In him we were also chosen. You have been chosen by God. It's up to you in terms of how you respond to that. What your reaction is to that, how you live your life because of that. But make no mistake about it, you have been chosen by God. And there's some significant times in your life where that becomes more clear to you than other times. My guess is that if you look back on your history, just your life history, not anyone else's, you could pull out some specific instances that you go, hey, this was... not that God was not real to me these other times, but something happened here that made God, I felt different because of this. Let me give you mine. When I was 23 years old, I got invited to go down to a conference at a church. And so I was like, excited. I'd never been to a conference before, so I was like, cool, yeah, I'll go to a conference. And I went to this conference, and I saw church done differently, like I had never seen it before. In the church that I grew up in, we were very traditional, we were formal. You did everything that normally when you think of church that you did. And so that was kind of our church. And so I went down and I saw this place, and I heard a message, and I'll never forget the moments of it. It's just kind of etched in my memory. I heard a message about how church did not exist for church people, but how the church existed for those who were desperate for God. Now, this is funny, because once I heard it, I realized that was the message of the whole Bible. And no one had ever told me that before. I was 23. I grew up in the church, and no one had ever told me that before. And I just saw things with kind of a new clarity. The phrase that I think is used in the Bible on Paul is it's like the scales fell off his eyes. And that's kind of how I felt in that moment. It was like, oh my goodness. It was like everything just like looked differently. I started interpreting everything differently. And for me, I can go back to that moment was when I was marked. I mean, I could say it like this. There was no turning back once that happened. Once I heard that, once I went through that, it was just kind of like, I can't do anything else. This is what I know I must do. My guess is that you, maybe not as strong, but you have had moments like that in your life where you've been marked. I love in our small group, people don't realize this is the language that they're using, but sometimes we'll have discussions in terms of significant moments in your spiritual life. And what people are talking about there is being marked. And it comes in all different sorts of things. Some people say, hey, well, when this person got sick, or well, when this happened, or these strange kind of things just came together, or when I had a kid, or when someone died. And what they're describing is different moments that they've been marked and how it shaped their life through that. And so I just want you to real quickly think, what are my markings? I mean, when have I been marked in my life? They may not all come to you right at this moment, but I promise you that you have been marked at different spots in your life. And one of the key things with that is normally the marking directs you. Normally the marking pushes you in a different direction. One of my favorite questions to ask people when I figure out what they do for a living is why. And I almost never have anyone answer, well, I just really needed a job, and I thought this job made money, so I got a degree in that, and I went and made money. Like, normally there's something that happened, whether it was a struggle, something that interested them, someone in their life who did it, a teacher who really connected with them. I mean, those are all markings. And so I want you to know, first off, you've been marked. And just be aware of that. Just be aware of those significant times in your life that will direct you because you have been chosen. Now the question is, we go, okay, so is that it? Like, is that good enough? Because once I've been marked, then I kind of know what I'm supposed to do. And the answer is obviously no, for two reasons. Because I've already given you the other 2 points, and so you know there's more to it by now. But the other reason works like this. It's like you break a bone in your body, and you don't go to the doctor right away, which is a bad thing, and so it starts healing wrong. Maybe like your arm goes boop, something like that. So what do they have to do? Well, they have to break it again to set it. And the issue is that even though you've been marked, your character, even though it's not nothing, it needs work. And so the next step is you have to be marred. Marred is damaged, broken, wounded, something like that. We see throughout David's life several different examples of him being marred. I'm going to give you a few of them. First of all, repeatedly, the king, Saul is still the king, and David's already been anointed the next king. So if you could imagine, this is going to create a little bit of tension in their relationship. And so Saul repeatedly tries to kill him. Numerous different times, hunts him down. One of the most common things, I think this happens 2 or 3 times, David is sitting and he's playing his harp. I guess this is how you play the harp. He's sitting and is playing his harp, and Saul gets up and throws a spear at him. Which I was just like to say, like, who spears the harpist? Like, that is not okay. That's like, I could see it more, no offense, Dustin, but if he was playing the drums, like we could go, oh yeah, well, I see you. But you can't spear the harpist. But, again, no offense, Dustin, that was great. But David's playing the harp and Saul tries to throw a spear at him. But repeatedly, the king tries to kill him. Eventually, David runs from Saul and he hides with the Philistines. Most of us are familiar with the story, David and Goliath. Goliath was a Philistine. David killed Goliath, who was a giant. And so the Philistines hated David. And since Saul was trying to kill David, David thought, I'm going to go hide with the enemy. And so he goes and hides with the Philistines. And so he tries to walk with them and help them. And eventually they reject him. And they kind of push him off to the side. And you can see that really hurt him. Later on in his life, his best friend Jonathan is killed in battle. Which, in the grand scheme of everything, we just kind of go, okay. If you look at David's response through that, that is a huge, huge marking in his life when his best friend dies and he never got to say goodbye to him. Later on, the story that we're all kind of familiar with, when he commits adultery with Bathsheba and then has her husband Uriah killed to cover that up. Later on, he has 2 sons, Amnon and Absalom. Absalom kills his other son, Amnon, because Amnon slept with Absalom's sister. I'm not going to really get into how all that's related, because it's just kind of weird and stuff like that. But the important thing is that one son kills another son, and then later on, his son Absalom rebels against him and kicks him out of the country. Just says, be gone, kind of removes him from his throne, and then he's got to fight his own son. And so you look at that. I think when we say character is about being marred, we would like to think, okay, maybe just one. Maybe just one damaged or wounded. But no, we see Saul tries to kill him. He's rejected by his enemies. His best friend is killed. He commits adultery and has her husband murdered. His son murders another son, and then his one son drives him out of the kingdom. If you look through that list, and I think this is very important, some of those are out of his hands. Other times he caused it. But I think it's important to acknowledge that both will happen to us. Sometimes the ways that you are damaged and wounded are completely out of your hands and there's nothing that you could have possibly done about it. Other times you get there by your own mistakes, by your own lack of character. To go back, and I know none of you are going to feel bad for me, but an instance with mine of being marred is when I broke up with Laura Belden right in front of her face and all her friends. It's stupid because I still remember that today. And so that was part of my damaged and wounded. And I just want to address something. There may be a tendency that we kind of go, do I really need to be damaged and wounded? Do I really need to be hurt like that? And the answer is absolutely yes. As I was prepping for this, we came up with a great metaphor that I thought was fantastic. And that is how gold is made. How many of us, we have some gold? There we go. Yeah, some of us. I don't. I don't know why I pointed to this because it's not gold. The process of gold being made, originally it's kind of stuck with ore. They've got to chisel it out. They go through this huge process of liquefying it and refining it and going through all these other different things. But one of the last steps in terms of making gold is you have to put it in the fire. And they'll put it in a smelter that gets up to 1,600 degrees Celsius. And what it does is when they burn it that hot, it separates the gold from the impurities, that the impurities rise to the surface. And so what they'll do is they'll try to skim the top or either pour it out a little bit, and so that all the impurities come out. And then they'll test it to see how much of that is gold and how much of that is just kind of other materials. And if still enough of it is gold, what will happen is they will pour it back in, and then they will burn it again for another 2.5 hours. And they will keep going through this process over and over again until they've got almost pure gold. So, the quality of gold is bound to how hot the fire is. You cannot have pure gold, you cannot have high quality gold if they won't put it through the fire. And your character is the exact same way. The quality of your character is bound to how much pain you're willing to go through. Now, I choose those words for a very important reason. The quality of your character is bound to how much pain you're willing to go through. There you go. So I have a choice? Well, the answer is no, because it's going to happen anyway. But I see people who get stuck at different points in their times when they've been marred. And they can never move past certain spots. Something will be taken from them. They'll be hurt in a certain way. You know these people. Maybe some of us are these people. Where it's kind of like, well, this happened. And for the rest of their life, they can't move past the fact that this certain thing happens. And we go, why does it happen? And I'm not saying God caused it. I would not say that. But I will say that he'll use it. That he absolutely will use it. And he will use it to refine your character. And so the quality of your character is bound to the pain that you're willing to go through. One of the common statements that's been in the church for years is those whom God uses mightily, he must first wound deeply. I love that. To those whom God uses mightily, he must first wound deeply. One of the things that I tell our leadership team at the church, and I don't say this in the group, but I've said this as I've kind of selected this group of people, is I want to make sure that they've been damaged. that they've been broken first. And for each one of us, we have a different story of being broken in terms of the church and our spiritual sides. And the reason why I want to be very careful with that I'm making sure that I'm choosing those people. Now, granted, that's not the only qualification, to be clear. There's other things that come in tact with that. Is I want to make sure that when something comes up, maybe in our church, that's negative, that's hurtful, that they're not going to just run. Because I know this isn't the fun spot, but I mean, a church, we are full of broken, sinful people. Well, why is the church full of broken, sinful people? Because the world is full of broken, sinful people. And we're just forgiven. We're just seeking God through that. And so sometimes bad stuff, negative stuff, hurtful things happen. And I want to make sure when those hurtful things happen that they have already been through it before, that their character has already been refined, and so they're not just going to bail and go, well, I didn't want this. They said this about me. This happened. That's not very Christ-like. I'll know that they can go through it. And so character is about being marked. Character is about being marred. And the third one, character is about being remade. You must be remade. What we see through David's significant moments where he was damaged is that every time he comes out on the other side better. This is very important. Every time he goes through these painful instances, he comes out on the other side better. When Saul tried to kill him, we see that he loses faith in people, but he has complete faith in God. I mean, this is very significant, because before Saul tried to kill him, he very, very much trusted in all those people who were in charge over him. And when the king tried to kill him, he just kind of went, God, you're the only person who I can go to. You're the only thing who will help me, which is so important. Later on, we see that when the Bathsheba-Uriah thing happens, when he commits adultery and then has her husband killed to kind of protect it and hide it up, we see that after that, he is very quick to look at his own sin before other people. If you're unfamiliar with the instance, let me just give it to you real quick. David was on his rooftop, and he sees a lady who was bathing, which I don't know why she was bathing in the open air. I'm just not going to go there. I have more to say there, but I'm just not going to say it. So he sees her. He likes it, which is really funny to read the Bible text on that. Like, sees her, and he went, yeah, way to go, and calls her in, has adultery with her. She gets pregnant. He tries to cover it up and has her husband killed. Later on, after that, the prophet Nathan comes in and basically tells a story of, hey, there was this guy who had a whole lot of sheep, and then he had his friends over for a dinner party, but instead of killing his one sheep, he went to this other poor guy who only had one sheep, who like slept in his bed and fed it from his hand and did all this other stuff. And so he took his sheep and he killed it and he served it to the people at his dinner party. Now, if I'm David, I'm going, this sounds a little bit familiar. But he goes, who is that man? And Nathan goes, yeah, it's you. And so in that moment, we see that David wasn't able to see his own sin. But after that, he is very, very quick to look in the mirror before he looks out the window. Even in the instance when his son drives him out of the kingdom, which was completely wrong, David's response to that moment is, well, maybe God has a work that he's trying to do here. I mean, almost to a fault, he's looking in the mirror. But we see that he's different from the instances that he's gone through. And then the very last one, when his son rebels against him and drives him out of the kingdom, he figures out how to lead even when he doesn't feel like it. Because he returns back, when his son dies, he returns back sorrowful and mournful. And basically the commander of the army goes, hey, we just won this battle, buck up. Let's quit acting like we just lost. And he does. And so in each moment, David comes out better than he did before. It's important to note, and I just want you to be very aware of this. Sometimes he sees it. Sometimes other people have to point it out to him. It's important that you know this about yourself. Because there are going to be moments when you go through difficult circumstances where you quickly learn the lesson and you move past it. And there's going to be other times when you need people in your life who are going to point it out to you. This is why as a church we stress so much the importance of groups. And we talk about groups over and over again. Because those are the people who will see you up close, who will be able to point it out to you. In a group this big, there can't possibly be that many people on Sunday morning. We can't get that close. I mean, even if we played dodgeball instead of having service, which I think dodgeball knits us together tightly. I mean, even if we did that, that wouldn't make us close enough to be able to point that out to other people. And if I did it from the stage, it would just be really, really awkward. Hey, you're going through this? We need to do this. And you. Although some of you may have been to that church, which is just really exciting as long as the person doesn't know you. So sometimes you need other people to point it out to you. And so just to kind of put it back, the character development process is about being marked, marred, and remade. You must be marked by God's significant moments. You must be damaged. You must be wounded. And then you must emerge from that differently. And that's not a one-time thing. That happens over and over and over again. You must be marked, marred, and remade. Now there's a problem with that, and that is almost all of those are out of your hands. The only thing that you can control in that is your response to the marring. And so we go, okay, so why do we need to know that if this is going to happen anyway? And I want to show you that there is one thing that you can do that will accelerate your character development process. There is one thing, and there is only one thing that you can do that will accelerate that process in your life. And I want to show you a few different examples from David's journal, and then I'll give it to you. Let me just read some of these passages. This is Psalm 57, and this happens when Saul tries to kill David, and David flees from Saul. Okay, so this is what he writes as he is running from Saul. He says, "Have mercy on me, O God, have mercy on me. For in you my soul takes refuge. I will take refuge in the shadow of your wings until the disaster has passed. I cry out to God Most High, to God who fulfills his purpose for me. He sends from heaven and saves me, rebuking those who hotly pursue me. God sends his love and his faithfulness. I am in the midst of lions. I lie among ravenous beasts, men whose teeth are spears and arrows, whose tongues are sharp swords. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth." And then later on he says, "I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations. I will sing of you among the peoples, for great is your love reaching to the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches to the skies. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth." I don't know about you. I don't know what your prayers look like, but my prayers don't sound like that. When something goes a little bit wrong, I'm pretty focused on the thing that goes a little bit wrong. And here he is, he's being hunted down, and that's his language. Let me give you one more, and I'll tell you what the actual accelerator is. This is Psalm 3. This is when his son drives him out of the kingdom. And he writes, "O Lord, how many are my foes? How many rise up against me? Many are saying of me, God will not deliver him. But you are a shield around me, O Lord. You bestow glory on me and lift up my head. To the Lord I cry aloud, and he answers me from his holy hill. I lie down and sleep. I wake again, because the Lord sustains me. I will not fear the tens of thousands drawn up against me on every side. Arise, O Lord. Deliver me, O my God. Strike my enemies on the jaw. Break the teeth of the wicked. From the Lord comes deliverance. May your blessing be on your people." I'll give you one more, and then I'll tell you what it is. Listen to the language in this. This is phenomenal to me. This is Psalm 51, and he writes this. This is just after Nathan, the prophet, who told the story of the sheep, has just basically confronted him about his adultery and murder. And he says, "Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love, according to your great compassion. Blot out my transgressions. Wash away all my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me." Now, listen to this. "Against you, you only have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight. He says later on, create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me from your presence or take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. So here it is, the accelerator. You have to be open to what God is doing. Being open to what God is doing. What fascinates me about that is that, and he says it just in passing, like when he says, deliver me from my enemies. My enemies rise up against me. But his focus throughout all of those is so incredibly on God. Like, not just when bad things happen, little situations, but when people are actually trying to kill him. He goes, God, I'll praise you. God, I will worship you no matter what. And I think that's the key. That's the key. As I've heard different people's stories, and as I've walked through people during some difficult times in their life, it's amazing to me the difference between the person who is, I want to say this right, okay? Between the person who is searching for answers in terms of why this, why that, why me, and the person who is trusting in God. Now, just because you trust in God doesn't mean that you're not searching for answers, but there is a difference there. There is a difference between, I need to know why this happened. I need to know why this person got sick. I need to know why this person passed. I need to know why they would say this about me. And the person who goes, God, I hope it works out this way, but I'm in your hands. I'm in your hands. And what I've seen is that the people who are open to what God is doing, first of all, they get through those things much quicker. Not saying they don't have hurt feelings, not saying they don't have scars from that, because that's part of being marked. You're going to have some scars. But they get through those things and move past it and start living their life much quicker. And the other thing is their character development is much stronger from that. Because they're going, God, just show it to me. And so that's how your character develops. Being marked, marred, and remade. And the one thing you can do, the only thing you can do, is to be open to what God is doing. Let me wrap this up real quickly, and then I have a few things for you. For me, and my concern with our church, I have concerns, is we have 4 staff members, me, Bobby. Bobby, how old are you? 21, good. Yeah, he was right. 21. Schultz, how old are you? 27. Oh, sorry, Missy's young. Sorry, I didn't think that through when I started it until I saw the shaking head. 32. Goo. I love you, Missy. This is just a joke. Here's my concern. We are young. And character development takes time. I mean, there is no getting around that. Character development takes time. And we are, as a church, we are a fairly young church. And I want to say this, and I want to be very clear on this. We're going to mess up. And I don't mean that as, I hope I don't mean that as like moral failure, something like that. But we are going to, especially as a staff, we are going to read situations wrong. And we are going to do things incorrectly. And it's important that we understand that dynamic of character is not an all or none, but that it shades and that we're still growing in that process. And I say that for a second reason. For those of you who are, let's say it like this. Oh, this will be a good word. Who are seasoned. Carefully chosen. For those of you who are seasoned, as a church, we need you to do this when the rest of us are doing this. Is that clear enough? For those of you who have been through it and been through the fire, I'm not saying that anything happened right now. I don't know of anything that's happening. But when difficult things come up, we need you to be the steadying force in our church when those of us who have not been through it nearly as much are kind of go, oh, what's this? What's going to happen? What are we going to do here? Clear enough? I hope that all of you understand that the most significant thing that happens in your life is character development, becoming more like Christ. And so because of that, the one thing that you must be laser focused on is being open to what God is doing. Because that's the only thing that you can do. And then when pain, when difficulty, when struggles come your way, you're ready for it. And you become better because of it. And so be open to what God is doing. I'm going to pray for us, and then I've just got 2 quick things I want to take you through. So let's pray. Father, we thank you for this chance that we can go through this. God, I just ask that our response to this is do your work in my life. Just that simple prayer. God, whatever it is, whatever you send my way, whatever comes up, do your work in my life. I'm open. I'm ready. I may not want the pain that comes. I may not want the difficulty that comes. But Lord, please do your work in my life. And make that our prayer this week. Make that our prayer for our lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Hey, 2 real quick things before I dismiss you. Next week, I am very excited about this. Next week, we're just going to kind of do a standalone message that's titled Why Faith? And I want to call this out just because if you have a friend who you've been working on inviting to church, this is the week to invite them. We want to make every week. If you're here and you're someone's friend, we are thrilled that you're here. Not that this was a bad week for you to come, because we want to make every week this. But every once in a while, we'll have a week that's kind of more specially geared to this. And so next week will be a great time to invite a friend. And then the other thing that I want to point out is a couple weeks ago, Stephanie Stewart got up here, and she gave a wrap-up of our projects that we did with the Love Does series, just a couple different things, raising food, working in the community garden. And we said we had one project left, which is to take care of the summer boxes for the backpack program. If you're unfamiliar, wait, hang on. Don't do that yet, because it's exciting, and it's, can you take it off? Be gone. Covered up. If you're unfamiliar with the backpack program, how the backpack program works is there's a number of kids who basically the only consistent meals that they get throughout the week is at the school. And so the backpack program sends kids home every weekend with a backpack that's full of food so that they can eat throughout the weekend before they come back to school on Monday. The biggest problem with the backpack program is that during the summer is the longest stretch that they go through with no food. And so what we said is our goal as a church is that we want to put together 52 boxes of food for these kids that they can take home so that they know that they're going to be able to eat throughout the summer and they don't have that concern. And so go ahead. Now, boom. This is the time. This is, if you go out front, there's a list. They kind of have this as a little handout that's at the welcome table. If you want to pick this up, this shows the progress that we've made so far on those different items. But I want to point out one thing. What is this? Stephanie Turner, if you know Steve Carlisle's daughter, she lives in Cincinnati. They come back every once in a while to visit. Stephanie Turner works for Kroger, and she is 29 weeks pregnant. I'm not calling out more people's age. That's weeks pregnant. She is 29 weeks pregnant and has had a lot of complications. She's in the hospital right now. They think the baby's going to come within the next week or so, and she's been there since earlier this week. And while she was in the hospital, she watched the message and listened to the updates of the things that we were doing and started making some contacts. And she was able to get, you see the big item on there is SpaghettiOs. She was able to get almost all of those donated for us. And so those are almost full. We only need a few canned items left. And so I just wanted to show you that, to show the difference that people are making. And Stephanie, I don't know, are we taping? There you go. I've never actually talked to the camera. Stephanie, hey. Hope you see this. Thank you. Yeah, we'll clap for Stephanie. So, I just wanted to give you that update. And if you want to bring any items in, we just leave them at the welcome table up front. And our goal is that we need these in 5 weeks. In 5 weeks is when we need these by. And our goal is at the end of that 5th week, we'll have all the items, and we can put them in the boxes and pack them up together and then send them out to the kids. So, just keep that in mind. And with all that, would you stand, shake someone's hand around you, and you are dismissed.